Okay.
So, you know what my favorite part is so far about the start of this podcast?
What?
I'm not sweating profusely. And that is such a great thing for me.
I know. And I was watching our last one, and I'm like, I look so freaking tired. But that's because I was up from 5 a.m. all the way, and I think we shot at like 9 p.m.
That's
or
actually
something.
my situation right now, but powering through it.
The hustle is real.
I mean, no, I actually feel pretty great. All you have to do is drink an amount of coffee that is not technically medically safe. But if you do that, you would be surprised how you can power through the day.
Yeah. But we're making it. We're here.
We're here. We're doing
Episode 2, baby.
Episode 2, no degree, just experience.
So our brother Christian got married to his bride Lucy this
So exciting.
past
It's been
weekend.
such a long time coming.
It was so good.
It was such a busy weekend for sure, but it was great. It was a beautiful wedding too.
It was so beautiful.
No, it was so beautiful. It's been such a long time coming. We're so excited for Christian and Lucy. So if you're watching this, shout out to Christian and Lucy. Congratulations, you guys.
Congrats.
We're so excited for y'all. It was a beautiful wedding too.
It was beautiful. It was actually not that bad. Like, there was not a lot of chaos going on. Like, you know, usually on wedding days, because, you know, I'm usually on the other side of things, right? Like, I'm doing like the makeup for weddings, and I see kind of like the stresses a little bit, like the time crunches and all that stuff. But I was on the other side and was able to be pampered for the first time in a long time. I was in the makeup chair, and it was like so good to just sit down and like not stress about timelines or anything like that.
I would say that was a weird thing for me too, like being at a wedding and not working.
I know, because I wanted to be like, okay, everybody good? Everybody, who's next? But I'm like, no, I don't want to create that pressure. I don't want to create that, you know, that pressure on them. So I was just trying to relax. But I was actually saying all of the things that bridesmaids say at weddings. So like when I'm the makeup artist and I'm doing it, they're just like, I'm just going to take a nap. I'm just so tired. And I said that same thing. I was like, I'm just going to like rest my eyes. And I didn't think I was going to be picky, which I really wasn't. I was hoping, you know, I wasn't going to be picky. Shout out to Jeanette. She's a trooper makeup artist. But I was kind of like, well, I want a little bit more and a little bit more hair. So she's like, girl, get it together.
Were you your nightmare client?
No, I wasn't a nightmare. But you know, it's different because like I always do my makeup, so it was just like. But Jeanette's amazing. Her team was amazing. They did a really good job. So I knew we were in good hands. But yeah, it was definitely different being on that side of things.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I can't remember the last wedding I was like in or a participant in and not working.
Yeah.
Because again, for those of us joining us, so she's a makeup artist and works a lot of weddings. I'm a videographer and a photographer, and I've also worked lots of weddings. And so it is very weird anytime I'm at a wedding and I'm not shooting. In fact, I still had all my camera stuff with me.
Oh, yeah.
And because the photographer's schedule was scheduled to be there later, I still went and like grabbed my camera and got a couple photos of Christian and Dad, like just because it was a
so
moment I wanted to
good.
catch.
Can we show it? Can we show it like right here?
Yeah.
Like pop it up in the screen, like right here.
Yes.
Just that black and white photo.
Oh,
so good. I'm so glad you like came in a clutch because there was such a little time for the photographer to get all the shots.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, hold that thought. Grab my camera.
Yeah, because we were all the groomsmen were getting ready, and Christian was like, hey, do you know where Dad is? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I think he walked off towards the little pool house or something. I was like, what's up? He goes, oh, I just need to get my tie on. And me and cousin Jake, both of us were like helping the other guys, like getting their ties and stuff going. So both of us like looked at him. We were about to go for it. Like, oh, that's a Dad moment.
Yeah.
And so when I thought that, I was like, oh, can someone call Dad and let him come over here? And then when I said that, I was like, I want to get this picture because this is a picture I almost always get when I'm shooting weddings.
Yeah.
So
it's such a special moment.
Yeah. So when he was coming, the dad putting on the son's tie and stuff, that little moment of connection. So
yeah.
As he was walking up, I was like, give me 2 minutes. Let me grab my camera real quick. So I grabbed my camera and then set up a little section inside the groomsmen house and stuff, and got some nice photos and captured some nice moments. So
It was so nice.
it was great. But let me ask you this.
What?
Was it really all that relaxing while you were getting ready, or was it still like stressful? Because I know from my perspective, the groomsmen, we were chilling. We were like barbecuing,
always.
hopping in the pool. Groomsmen always get to have the most fun leading up to like
I know.
the day of the
Y'all
wedding
have
in
like
the
3
morning.
or 4 hours just to do whatever you want.
just
Meanwhile,
partying
we're
and
getting our
stuff.
hair and makeup done at like 8 in the morning,
know.
9 in the morning, all the way till 3.
I know, seriously. Y'all are like locked up in there. It was humid that day too, so Jake was joking around. He was like, yeah, y'all can't even come out here once your hair is done. You can't even step outside.
I know. It was humid.
So it was fun though.
I mean, I was the first one done. So I got it done, my makeup done and hair done between 9 and 10. And we didn't walk out till 5.
Yeah.
And it was still good.
Still good.
It was
Still on
just,
point.
a matter of like managing the kiddos and all that stuff. But for the most part, I mean, as a bridesmaid, I was fine. Lucy, on the other hand, I don't know what she was feeling. I can't speak for her,
my
but
gosh.
I'm sure all the nerves were going, which hopefully we can get them on the podcast to talk about their day in the coming weeks. They're on vacation right now and honeymooning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it
hope
was
y'all
just
having
like, it was
fun.
such a great wedding. It was so pretty.
awesome.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad I saw a lot of people too that I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much family there. It was our kiddo's first wedding. And your family is gigantic. So many people. So it was so funny having our kids in that room and then having to explain to them, oh, that's your cousin, and that's your cousin.
know.
And that's your cousin, and that's your cousin. That's your tia. That's Theo. That's a cousin.
At this point, Lila, everybody's your tia and your Theo and your cousin.
Took it in so much that they literally like met some people that were not cousins and were like, that's my cousin. We're like, might as well. Sure.
Yeah, sure. We're all family at this point, right?
You just need to believe it at this point.
2 families become one.
Yeah. But I will say, like, it is, now that the wedding stress is kind of done, and I'm sure Lucy and Christian feel that more than anyone, but it is kind of nice getting a little breather after that was done this weekend and just kind of relaxing a little bit this week.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it's been busy. So
But we're back on it.
We're back
on the
on it.
grind.
and
I actually had a wedding the next day.
you did, and I shot an event the day after that.
Yeah. And, our family was like, you got a wedding to work tomorrow morning? I'm like, yeah. The hustle is real. The grind
know.
is real. It's like, do I like relax for the weekend, which I was planning on it early before, but then I was like, nah, let me just go ahead and make this money real quick.
I say this is an interesting season in life because there's so much going on. And man, I feel like let's take media, for example, right? So I feel like throughout the 2010s, there was such a huge stigma on hustle culture,
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk and all the entrepreneurs and stuff coming up, and everything was like work, 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 work. And also the economy falling apart and stuff. So
Yeah.
like you want to work, you want to build your life, you want to make sure that your future is set and stuff. So,
For sure.
and then we have jobs, and then we have other kind of goals and stuff we want to work towards. So it's such an interesting thing to try to do self-care.
What is that?
What is that? What is self-care?
What is
Self-care is when I get to shave.
No, self-care is driving and having the me time, driving to your job.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's just like silence.
I mean, I drive the kiddos here, so really that's still entertaining people.
Your social meter is just like always depleted.
I know, and I don't know if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. What's the other term, like ambivert or omnivert or something like that?
I don't know.
All I know is that there's some people like your brother Alex, where I feel like being around people like just brings him life. Like
Yeah,
that
for
recharges
sure.
his batteries. Being around people recharges his batteries.
He's definitely an extrovert.
And I'm really good at like being around people and like being on and stuff and like entertaining and things like that. Like I'm very engaging to talk to, but it does not charge my batteries. Like it definitely drains and takes away from me and stuff.
Yeah.
And like when that happens, I need to like recharge.
What do you do to recharge?
The best thing that I do to recharge is really 30-minute bathroom breaks. Shout out to all the dads.
Oh, God. No
That's-
lie. Seriously, he does take freaking 30 minutes,
Just
20 minutes.
scrolling the
I don't
gram.
know what you're doing, but I'm like, can you wipe your already?
Here's the thing.
Get out of here.
If
Get
I'm
out
on the
of bath-
phone on the sofa, sorry guys, I'm giving out the secrets here. If I'm on the phone on the sofa, I have two little munchkins that are coming up to me that want my attention and stuff. I have anything else in the house to deal with. But when you are secluded in that booth of privacy behind an 1.5 inch of wooden door that still have fingers coming underneath it for some reason, there's space.
Well, I don't have that luxury. The kiddos want to be in the bathroom with me all the time.
There's a lock on the door. You could isolate yourself.
I mean, but like half of me is like, yeah, just come in.
Yeah, no, I'm locking that door. And then I'm like, get your fingers out of the door.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same way. I can be around people and like entertaining and laugh and joke and stuff, but then there's like a couple of days where I just need to be like chilling on the couch and just like reset my brain. I think retail therapy works really well for me. Yeah, totally recharges me.
Retail therapy is definitely your thing. My thing is obsessing over all of my little camera stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
Like recently getting into my vintage camera lenses and stuff and just being obsessed with it. I always need some kind of like thing to kind of hyper focus on, like in my attention, something I
Right.
can fiddle with and play with and stuff. Like I was almost thinking about buying a whole kit for like cleaning my lenses. And then I was like, I do not have time to invest in that and learn that.
Yeah.
But life has just it's been busy. It's been a busy season, but it's been a really good season. Like it's
Yeah.
weird that there's so much going on. Our plates are incredibly full, but at the same time, it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot that's just been happening, like doors being opened and like we said last episode, like things have just been falling into place. And I feel like for the longest, we tried to like force things happening. We have all these ideas. And it feels like when you force things to happen and they don't fall into place, it's not meant to be at that time or it's not for you. But this season, we're kind of just surrendering to whatever is in store for us. And everything has just been like falling into place so easily. And we're definitely, our plates are full, but I feel like we wouldn't be in this season if we weren't prepared or we weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like we're doing a good job. I mean, this is our second podcast, so
I know, right? Getting
we're
stuff
keeping
done.
the momentum going.
It's true. And I actually feel even with us, I feel more connected to you in this season, even though we're probably busier than we've ever been.
Yeah.
I also feel more connected to you than
Yeah.
probably ever before in our marriage. Like,
I
it's a really
agree.
good season.
I agree. I think because our career, not only our careers, but like our purposes have aligned. Like we were parallel for so long and then like finally it's coming into a peak. And I feel like we are literally on the same path now. And that's not a bad thing. I feel like in marriage, you have your own careers and stuff, but it's very rare that two people in a marriage are doing the same thing and the same purpose.
Yeah.
And I feel like our talents, our weaknesses, our strengths are the opposite. So like we're able to like help each other for sure on this like journey that we're on.
Yeah, that's true. I've never felt like more of a partner with you than in this season.
What was your did you ever take that Strength Finders test when you were an intern at that church?
I did. I actually took Strength
What were
Finders.
your strengths? Because I took it, and I think the top 3, my first one was a ranger. And a ranger is that putting things in order.
Yeah.
Like that is one of my strengths.
That is absolutely one of your strengths.
And like being, having a schedule and all that stuff. And then my second one was context. It was either one or the other. It was like top 3, like a ranger, context, and context was give me all of the details so I can see the bigger picture and I can make a decision based on past decisions, based on all the details, and I can move forward. Like, that's what that means.
Gotcha.
Context. That is my strength. I need all the details, all the past, things so I can move forward.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and you're like, I think you were a maximizer.
Yeah, I want to take it again. Like
I do
I think they
too.
say you're not supposed to take it multiple times. I've already taken it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, but it's been like 10 years since
It's
we've
been a
taken
long
it.
time. I'm a different person now.
No, they say like, okay, so I think there's like 20, right? Or 25 strengths.
Yes. Something like that. There's a lot.
You should really take this test. It's called Strength Finders. I'm not sure. I think it's like $20 online. I'm not sure anymore.
It's developed by Gallup. There's this book called Strength Finders, and the whole concept of it is there's really no smaller way to break it down. It's like when they talk about like education in the U.S., like if you have a student who's really good at math, but terrible at English or writing, when your student comes home, they have a B in math and they have a D in writing. Which one do you spend more time on with the student?
You typically do the D.
They focus on the D. They focus on, okay, let's boost the writing. But Strength Finders is like, well, people have natural strengths.
Right.
So if your kid comes home, has a B in math and a D in writing, you can put as much time into the D in writing as you want, and you'll only get minimal improvements.
Right.
But if you put your energy into the thing you're already good at, you'll take that math from a B all the way to like an A plus
Right.
with way more ease than it took for you to do the English, because there's things that we're prone to doing.
Right.
So Strength Finders is all about finding what is the thing you're prone to doing, like what are you naturally good at, and invest your time into that instead of trying to fix all your flaws.
Right.
Like, don't fix all the stuff you're bad at. Put most of your energy into what am I good at and how do I become amazing at that?
Right. Which
So-
I think that's, yeah, like, because everybody has different strengths, different talents, that's why people have are good at being a CEO of a company, and some people are just good at other things, but,
Yep.
and also they said that, your top 5 out of that test, because they do give you all 25 or all 20 like in order,
Yeah.
but your top 5 to top 10, they kind of rearrange. They will always stay the top 10 and top 5, but they'll kind of rearrange depending on like your life circumstances, or like if trauma happens, like something is going to change it along the lines of like where you are at in life, but they'll always be the same.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you work on the 25th strength and you work hard at it,
Never
you're
gonna go
only
up that
going to go
much.
up a little bit,
Yep.
So,
I took it a few times, and every time within my top 3, I always got 2 of the same ones in my top 3, which was Maximizer, which is I'm terrible at starting new things,
that's why you got me. I'm just
but
kidding.
I'm really good at taking something that is there and taking it from like okay to like excellent.
Yeah.
So maximize stuff. I'm
You
not
are.
good at starting things from scratch, but I could take something that exists and I can make it better.
You really are good at that. You can really see like the potential in something that's already going good, or that has the potential. You're really good at spotting that process, or like the person, or like whatever, and you're really good at like boosting it.
When I think about it like that, though, it kind of sounds like, hey, I don't start anything but myself, but if you start something, I'm going to tell you how you should do it better. It's
No,
I'm really good at being judgmental and critical.
no. Well, you do have a lot of opinions, okay? A lot of opinions.
Yeah, but they're all right.
But like even this position that you're at with your career,
Yeah.
like you have taken this department and you have just elevated it. Everybody gets along. Like you are such a good leader, and you have such good influence, and you see the like different things the strengths that people are good at, and you kind of like, okay, you're strong at this, I'm gonna put you here. You're strong at this, I'm gonna put you here. And it's all like cohesive, and it makes your team better. And I've seen that in the past like 3 years that you've been here.
I appreciate that. I'd say that is part of, something I got through, like learning things like Strength Finders and stuff, of like trying to identify what do people naturally gravitate to and how can I make them do like more of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So like just share like what you actually do, because you say always like you're a media director, but like what do you actually do at your job,
Sure. So,
and where do you work?
So I work at Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church. Shout
Yeah.
out to MDPC.
Yeah.
I am the media director here. I've been here since 2021, and it is the most favorite job I have ever had.
Yeah.
It is so great. I enjoy working here so much. I love the people I get to work with. It really is an incredible church, and I've gotten to grow a whole lot in my skill set just in being here. Get to work with an amazing team of guys who just are really passionate about what they do, all their media stuff. And yeah, I love my position here. I love the role. I did not think over the last probably like 10 years or something, I did not think I would find myself back in churches, like
Yeah.
working in churches and stuff.
I know, right?
But God always finds a way to get you back to where he wants you to be.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
For sure. Because it was a while that we were kind of outside that realm.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just took like your interests and talents, like, okay, we're going to mold you into this.
I know. So I thought that I wanted to do my whole life since growing up. I always thought that I was going to be in ministry. I always thought I was going to be like a missionary or then a youth pastor or
Yeah.
a young adult pastor or something like that. And then somewhere around the mid 2010s, I kind of felt like, okay, I don't think that's going to be the trajectory of my life. And I kind of was just wandering. I kind of stepped away from being in ministry altogether. I had never not been volunteering in church since I was a child. So my mom was like a children's ministry director.
Yeah.
So as soon as I was old enough to help, I was helping. Like when I was like 5 years old,
I know.
I was wiping down tables in children's ministry before the kids got there before service and stuff. Always like served in ministry and youth ministry, worship ministry and stuff. I was always like volunteering in some capacity. So like the mid 2010s, like after we had gotten married and stuff, just through some various circumstances, we kind of took a step back. That was the first time I was not actively involved in volunteering and really like kind of searching for a new church home that we just hadn't found at the time.
Yeah, you were kind of like at a high capacity position or like intern at the church we were at.
Yeah.
And you did that for 2 years. And then I did that. I did
Yeah.
it right after you because it was like a 2-year, right, maximum. And then so at your second year, I did the internship. And then after that, our lives just kind of shifted because we got married. We wanted
Yeah.
to take a break.
We wanted to focus a lot on ourselves and stuff.
Yeah, because I feel like at the beginning of our relationship, we weren't really focused a lot on us.
That is
like,
very true.
We were like so involved with the church on like, you know, you were doing your thing. You lived in Peru for 3 months at the beginning, which that's a really cool story. So I'm sure you'll share later. You know, I was heavily involved at the church at the time, and I was doing all these extracurricular things. Like, we were just so busy.
I mean, we had full-time jobs, and then we also were very high-capacity volunteers. So
Yeah.
maybe it's a trend in our lives that we don't know how to relax.
I know.
I don't think we've ever relaxed.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit, because then once we were married and stuff, and we did take a step back, we took some time to kind of work on ourselves, work on our relationship, get to know each other on a deeper level. And that was just a whole journey in itself. But in stepping away, I ended up finding my way back into working in churches through my interest in cameras and photography and videography.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a road that God took to bring me back into it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you've only been in the church now again since like 2019.
2019. So I started working at one church in 2019, and that was just because I needed. I think we were trying to have another kiddo at the time, and I was like, I need benefits. So I was.
This is all I know.
I know, but I didn't want to. I mean, before that, we both worked at a freight and logistics company. I was like a inventory supervisor, warehouse situation.
Yeah.
So I was very far from anything that I was used to in my life before. And whenever I got into videography and stuff and didn't have that job anymore and I needed to find work again, I didn't want to go back to that.
Right.
So I was like, how do I find work, using my skill set, using my cameras? I was doing freelancing, but if you want benefits and stuff, and the answer to that was, hey, there's a church hiring. And so I started doing videography at a church, and then the pandemic happened.
I know.
And when the
That's
pandemic
crazy.
happened in 2020, that's when I went from like,
You got hired January 1. 2020, right?
No, I was hired in September of 2019. So I only
Okay.
had a few months at that church I was working at.
The first one.
The first
Yeah.
one before the pandemic happened. And then it was like everything else at the church just shut down. But at that point, the only thing that still existed was the video team
Yeah.
and like the worship team that was there. So churches kind of struggled in that time figuring out how do we do this? How do we get online and stuff?
It's such a weird time.
It was such a weird time, but I was fortunate. I was working under one of my friends who was a videographer at this church. I was his assistant and stuff. And we ended up literally recording 3 services every single week, like recording it on Wednesday, editing it on Thursday, and then putting it out by Sunday. And so we were
Right.
pulling like 60-hour weeks and stuff.
Y'all were essential workers
We were
for
essential
sure.
workers. 2020 is when the media departments of churches, where it went from like, oh, they're kind of important to like, oh no, they're important. We need to actually put some focus in
Yeah.
this. And that's what kind of helped boost me in my career.
You were
and stuff,
kind of
was
just
working in
thrown into the
churches.
fire and just had to learn it quick.
Yeah.
Like live broadcasting and all that stuff. Right?
Exactly. That was a great experience too. It was really helpful kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to get like, the 10,000 hours of like to become a professional and stuff, I got a lot of hours in 2020.
I remember
when
I was
grew a
pregnant
lot.
that year too.
gosh,
So I
you
was
were.
just like pregnant, dealing with a toddler.
Ooh, yeah.
It was tough, but so then you got hired at MDPC.
Yep.
And you got hired as a media director.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never seen you flourish until now. Like
I feel the same.
you just like really no, like for real, like they hired you in 2020, right? 2021.
2021, yeah.
2021. And then from now, you have just like you would think that you'd be doing cameras for like 10 years. Like so
I know,
much and like you've done so much, and I want you to share a little bit about the opportunities that you've had like last summer when you went to Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me start off by again shouting out MDPC, Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church, because
Such a good church.
the greatest blessing I've gotten through here that for my life and our journey we're at is their dollar for dollar program here at the church.
Yeah.
So ever since MDPC started, this church literally gives away 50% of its budget, or should I say 50% of its budget goes to outreach. So part of that could be internal within the church, but a very large portion of that also goes to our 120 some odd ministry partners.
Wow.
So for every dollar that comes in, 50 cents of that is going out to outreach. 50
Wow.
cents of that is being spent on the community. And we have local partners here in Houston. We have foreign partners overseas.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to be at a place that really values the real mission of the church. Like we're helping others, we're pouring into others and stuff like that.
I think that's why we fit so good here is because they're very mission driven.
Yes.
And we are very much mission minded. And I think that's why we connect so much here.
Yeah.
So
It's been my favorite part. And so in my day-to-day job and stuff here, I mean, I'm obviously responsible for Sunday mornings. Really important that everything goes great with like the stream and stuff because we have, in-house media stuff that happens. And then we also broadcast out onto the internet and stuff on a few different platforms. And that way we have people who are inside the church listening. We have people who are in, at home or in different states, even different countries who tune in online and stuff. And so that's a big part of the job. But my favorite part of the job is being able to go and film with our ministry partners.
Yeah.
So for about, I want to say we usually have around 8 to 9 each year that we kind of assign at the beginning of the year of like, okay, these are partners that we want to feature in service. And so I get to go out to a destination, get to go to one of our facilities, our ministry partners' facilities, and I get to shoot a short story video of them talking about what it is they do, how they're reaching out to their community, why it's important. I get to get those stories, edit it, and show that to our congregation probably like once a month or something like that.
saying this is where your money's going, this
Yeah.
is how you're making an impact. And I think that's what I love about MDPC is that they're so transparent about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really love that about it.
It's amazing. And like the stories I get to hear are just incredible. Like I don't think there's a whole lot of people that have the opportunity that I have to go to so many different places on the regular and get really in-depth conversations with people about what they're doing for others, how they're serving other people, how
Right.
they're taking care of needs in the community. It just feels so much like the church. And not
Yeah,
even
it
every
does.
organization is necessarily Christian, I think. I mean, or at least they're not all faith-based. Like
Right.
people might be involved in church and stuff, but it's not necessarily a faith-based ministry. Like Houston Food Bank is one of the partners that we have and stuff.
Right, right.
But it's all focused towards giving back to the communities, helping the people who have need. And that's so cool to be able to go and capture those stories. And I've really gotten to grow a whole lot in my own videography. I'm like how you shoot
I
an
know.
hour-long interview and cut that down into the 2.5 minutes I get in service to show it. So
I
I got
know. You're so good at it.
concise and detailed little videos of like, how do you highlight the story in the best way? And that's just been
Right.
a great growth experience for me. It's been a lot of fun and been a lot of emotions going and shooting at all those
I
places.
know. No, some of your videos that you've shown me, I'm just like bawling because I'm like, this is such a good story. And they're doing so good.
I
And
know.
they're helping all these people and these youth. And I'm just like, my heart.
I'm just
I
privileged to
love,
be able
like, I just have a heart for that, heart for people. And like, I'm about to get emotional, but I'm trying not to. You are in the perfect spot,
Yeah.
in the perfect time, doing what you're just meant to do right now at this
absolutely.
time.
Yep.
And
I've never felt before so much that like I'm right where God wants me.
exactly.
Like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Like I feel like I'm living in my purpose right now, which is
Yeah.
amazing. It's a great feeling.
It's rare that people feel that. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of times we're like searching our whole lives. Like, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like how do you think one finds purpose?
That's
Like-
a great question because I mean, in all honesty, I feel like we wandered for a long time
Yeah.
trying to figure that out. And I had no intention on getting to this place and finding that purpose.
Right.
It's really funny. So like I grew up in a non-denominational church. And something that you see in a lot of non-denominational churches and stuff is there's a very big emphasis on doing what God wants you to do. I felt like growing up, there was such a strong emphasis on like the story of Jonah, where it's like,
Oh, right.
if you're out of the will of God, you're going to get eaten by a whale. Metaphorically, it's like,
Yeah.
if things are going wrong for you, it might be because you're not doing things in the will of God. So there's a lot of like reflection where you're constantly asking God, hey, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? What do you
Yeah,
want me to
I
do?
don't hear anything.
What do
What
I
do-
do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now, God.
Yeah.
But it was at the church I interned at with the intern director. He was the first one that ever taught me this quote from St. Augustine, who was a patron saint of the church and stuff from the early centuries. And he had this quote that I absolutely loved, which is, love God and do as you please. And that was profound to me.
You're
For
like, wait a
someone
minute.
who
That's
was
all I got to do?
someone who is constantly asking himself, like, what does God want me to do? What is the point of my life? The same question, what is something that I'm meant to do?
Right. Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I grabbed onto that phrase and I was like, yes, this is it. Love God and do as you please. It doesn't matter so much. There was a book that was attached to that where like, there were people asking like a pastor a question, like, what should I do about this? And he goes, well, do whatever you want. Just love God and do as you please. Like, what about this? Do whatever you want. Just love God and do as you please. And
Do you think, though, that some people can get that twisted? Like, yeah, I love God, but I'm going to do whatever I want.
so?
Like, so what? Because, like, when you first said that to me, I was like, wait, like, that doesn't seem like a good direction.
Well, there's like a caveat though to it. We're like to understand what it means to love God. Like if you love God,
Well, I understand now, but
Yeah.
for those hearing that for the first time, it could
Exactly.
be like, oh, wait, I
can do
could
whatever I
still
want.
do this. I could still do this. Like, I could still,
essentially you can still do a lot.
of course.
But if you
of
love
course.
God, you're following the commandments. And Jesus broke it down into two things: love God, love others. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're loving God, you're following those commandments. You're making sure the things you're doing are in line with, God's word. And then if you're loving others, you're not screwing people over. You know?
Right.
You're not doing things that are harming other people. And if you live life with those two principles that like, I'm going to do things, but I'm going to do it ethically, morally. I'm going to do it with, God in mind. I love God, but the small details or the journey that you're on, that takes the pressure off of what I was taught, which was make sure that you're doing things in the
Like
will of God.
straight edge.
Because if it's not in the will of God,
Yeah.
things are not going to go well for you. And
That's
so
such a condemnation, like
it is.
mindset.
It's absolutely
condemning
a combination.
mindset.
Yes, it was.
So that was
it
tough.
really it gives. There's a lot of anxiety with that
Yeah.
concept of like, I got to pick the right thing, and if I don't, or then if things start going wrong with you, then you're like analyzing yourself, like, okay,
Yeah.
what am I doing that's outside the will of God? Where am I pulling a Jonah? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? God, why is everything going wrong?
I mean, even just a normal person goes through that.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what the spiritual aspect to that, because that's such a deeper like thing with your
Exactly.
soul and your spirit. It's just like, I can't imagine being an adolescent trying to find your identity and try to find your purpose, and then like having that spiritual aspect to it. That must have been like
It
hard.
was. I definitely shaped my youth because I was a very lame teenager. I did not do the fun things. So I didn't act out as a teenager. I didn't go and do a whole bunch of stuff. I was a very rare situation where at the age of 5, I knew that I was meant to be a missionary. And I lived my whole life with that in mind. So like other kids are
Okay.
like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an astronaut. I was like, I'm going to be a missionary.
Wow.
And so I lived my whole life knowing that.
But at 5, what did you think that was?
At 5, I thought that meant going to another country, and I guess you just talk to people
And you still
about
remember that
Jesus.
thought at 5 years old?
Yes, I remember I was riding in my mom's car on the way to school, and I just felt it in my heart, and I was like, I'm supposed to be a missionary.
Wow.
And like I hung on to that since I was 5.
Yeah.
So my entire growing up and stuff in the church, my teenage years, everything was very ministry focused. Like
Wow.
I said, I spent all of my time volunteering.
And
in
you're
churches.
trying to force that path though, right? Because
Yes.
that thought was in your head. You've had that all along growing up. So like any decision you make, okay, is this going to lead to the missionary purpose? Is this going to lead? So you're kind of like forcing your way, right?
Exactly. But there was other turns and stuff too. So like, once I was in youth ministry and stuff, I was like, oh, I love youth ministry. Maybe I should be a youth pastor. And then me and all my friends, we all skateboarded all the time. But there was a point where all my friends who always skateboarded all of a sudden they were learning instruments and forming a rock band. And so I realized, if I want to have friends, I got to learn how to play an instrument. So I picked bass guitar because it seemed the easiest. But once I started playing music, then it was like, oh, well, maybe leading worship is my thing. So there's all these different
So
paths.
you're just constantly like,
Going
where
from
am I
thing to
going?
thing in the church. Like I didn't know what it was. I knew I was meant to be in ministry. And so I was just hopping from thing to thing, essentially saying, God, where do you want me? Where am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
How does this fit? And all the experiences, like I can see how they're all useful. Like all of that comes back. Nothing is wasted.
For sure.
In my perspective. But there was a lot of that jumping around. But it wasn't until I was interning, I heard that quote from St. Augustine. I was doing real deep self-reflection and thinking to myself, I don't think that, I was interning in the youth ministry. And I had a moment where I was like, this ain't it.
Wow.
I thought maybe I was going to be a youth pastor, and I was like, nope, youth ministry ain't it. And that's when I turned back to missions. And so that's when I ended up taking a 3.5-month missions trip to Peru, which that's going to be a whole other story in itself too.
Well, that's also how we met though.
That is how we met.
That's how we met.
You're right.
So like you did internship, you graduated.
Yes.
I was at that time just headstrong in the church and like almost kind of like you. I knew missions was like a thing for me. That was like a heart for people. And
You were
like,
a
how do I
high-capacity
serve? High
leader.
capacity, yeah. And our mentor, Chris, we didn't know each other, but we knew Chris.
Yeah.
And I went to Africa with Chris, and so he knew me that way. And anyway, fast forward, he was like, "Hey, I want you to lead a short mission trip to Oklahoma during the tornado disaster." This was back in like 2013.
Yeah, the Moore, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Moore, Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah, tornado.
And I was supposed to go with somebody else as my co-leader. And then that guy dropped out or something. He couldn't do it. And he was like, oh, but I'm going to have this guy, Charlie. And I was like, Charlie, I've heard that name before. Okay.
I had a similar meeting, but when I met with Chris, he was like, "You're gonna be leading with Rocky," and he's like, "Do you know Rocky?" I was like, "Oh, I know Rocky."
I had no clue who you were. I had no clue who you were.
I knew you by name, and then I also knew like I'd seen you around and stuff, and I found you very attractive.
I didn't even know who you were.
You didn't
I'm
know I
sorry.
existed.
I didn't know you existed.
It's all right. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I didn't. I think I saw you at maybe a meeting, a volunteer meeting, but I was like, this guy is creepy and he's staring at me. And if he keeps staring at me, I'm going to say something because I don't appreciate it.
Look, that is a true story.
That is a very true story. My friend Vincent was with me, and I'm like, Vincent, if this guy looks at me like creepy one more time, I will say something. I'm going to call him out.
For the record, I did not realize I was staring at you that much. I can believe it, and you telling it back to me like, yeah, that checks out. I probably was staring. I didn't remember that, but yes, apparently I was staring at you in a meeting. I was just love at first sight infatuated.
Oh my God. So then we got picked to do that mission trip. And so when I actually met and we were texting, I'm like, all right, let's meet for coffee. Let's figure out the plan. Like, how we're going to lead all this trip, how are we going to lead? I was nervous. That was my first mission trip that I led, like young adults. Yeah. Our peers, essentially.
So we were both the leaders. We were both selected as the leaders for this young adult missions trip. We had a team of like 30 people with us.
Yeah.
Now, there were still also like the missions department of that church. The missions director and stuff was on that trip as well. Yeah. But we were kind of given the responsibility of like leading it and stuff. They were given the responsibilities from the church that we were partnering with there. So they knew the tasks and stuff. They doled it out, but we were kind of responsible for managing the teams and stuff.
And we were just kind of the faces of the young adult mission part of it. So when I met you at coffee, I'm like, oh, it's this guy. Okay. All right. But
when I met you at coffee, I was like, what's up? Yeah. I did not have game.
No, you did not. I was not looking. I was like totally like, this is business. So, because I really wasn't. That was not where my head was at the time. And then we led that mission trip together. Yeah, so I feel like our whole relationship, we've just been doing this partner thing and just serving people.
Yeah, serving people has always been like a cornerstone of this.
I think that's what led me to you, because when I prayed for my husband, I was like, God, I don't care what he looks like. I don't care, whatever. I was like, I want my husband to love people. And I know that if he can love people, he can love his family just as much, even more. So, I haven't repeated that in a while. And like, that's exactly what I got. And I'm so grateful for you.
Really grateful for you too. You can pause for a second.
Sorry. Haven't repeated that in a while. But, and then when we came back, we bonded so much on that trip. And then when we came back, we just had such a good relationship. Yeah. And we love talking to each other. I love talking to you and picking your brain, because I did not grow up the same way. We did not have church. I mean, like, we knew who Jesus was, but I'm like, who's this guy that died for me? I don't even know who he is. Like, I know he died, but I don't know who he is, Yeah. And our parents just kind of let us find our own path. But, that seed was dropped in us, like, when we were little. We just we weren't devout. We weren't religious. We weren't, like, every Sunday, like you. Like, you were, this was, like, black and white extreme, like, between your childhood and mine. And while you were being a good boy, I was like, woohoo, let's go out. So I had a very different upbringing, and I found my path differently, but we found each other in the same, like, path. So fast forward, we've been doing this thing for 10 years, mission focused, mission minded. We love to serve others, and we love people that serve others, and like, we're just like, we want to help them. Yeah. And I want you to kind of share our second part of this journey, because I know last episode we were talking about all these things are falling into place, but the podcast is obviously one thing that we wanted to do. but we actually have started our new business,
Yeah.
Servant's Heart Media.
Servant's Heart Media.
So share a little bit about that and how that transpired. And I think it transpired last year
Yeah, definitely.
in July
That was the
when you went
catalyst
to
of it,
Africa.
for sure.
So share a little bit about that.
So I I had the incredible privilege that Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church sent me on a missions trip to Africa with the youth department. The youth and young adults went on this mission trip there, and I was able to accompany them to kind of capture twofold things while I was there. So took a video camera and a photo camera with me, and I was capturing the youth ministry side of the trip. So like seeing the youth and young adults and what they were doing and kind of recapping that for the congregation. But then also filming one of our ministry partners. So we went there to serve with Lulwanda Children's Home. So there's this children's home in Mbale, Uganda. And the whole purpose of it is like during the AIDS epidemic and stuff that happened, in the 90s and whatnot, there was a lot of kids in Africa who lost their parents, a lot of orphans. And they have this amazing couple, Pastor Morris and Mama Ida, and they started a children's home. They're church planters, and they had been planting churches in Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Uganda. They'd already been doing it for a good while. And when they realized how many members had lost their lives, children's being orphaned and stuff, they knew they had to do something about it. And so they started Lulwanda Children's Home. And we get to go there and we get to volunteer. We weren't like, it wasn't a missions trip like you think of where like we're there and we're doing actions. There wasn't like a whole lot of specific serving happening. It was more about going there and seeing what one of our partners was doing, having the youth kind of experience that. We did make some awesome connections with the kids. We got to spend time connecting with them, worshiping with them, like playing music and stuff.
That's awesome.
We did have a day
love
where
that.
we went out to some villages and we actually went evangelizing in villages and praying with people there. And that was amazing experience too. But it was on that trip that I remembered, like I said, when I was 5 years old. I'm going to be the one that's going to cry now. When I was 5 years old, I felt like I was meant to be a missionary. And you asked, what did that look like? And I thought it means going to countries and, like, I guess, talking to people, witnessing to people and stuff. But what's so crazy is how God always brings it back is that now the career that I'm in, I had this awesome opportunity where I got to share a story. So I got to go to this foreign place. I got to meet with these people who are doing amazing hands and feet work of Jesus stuff in Uganda. And I get to capture that story and bring it back to the church to show our members, hey, when you're donating to MDPC, this is who you're donating to as well. Your resources, your gifts are going into the kingdom in this way. And so I realized there, like, man, this is my passion. Like shooting weddings, it's fun, but that's not my passion.
For sure.
Shooting like little commercial gigs and stuff for businesses, I mean, that's okay.
Well, it's not your purpose.
It's not my purpose.
Yeah.
But in that moment there, I felt like I was living in my purpose. I remember I had this real distinct thought, even before I left for Africa. I remember, like I said, being a teenager, growing up in church and stuff, I'm ministry minded. Like I thought I was going to be in ministry. I was fascinated with Acts and I was fascinated with Paul. And I always wanted to be kind of like Paul, like just like going off on these essential, like, missions, adventures and stuff, and like ministering to people.
Yeah.
And like his words and stuff are so strong and his stories are so great. I just really wanted to be like Paul. And before going off on that ministry, I just felt it in my heart. I was like, wait a minute. You're not going to be like Paul. In this case, you get to be like Luke. And for those who don't know, Luke is the one who wrote the Gospel of Luke, and he also wrote Acts. But Luke himself was not a disciple. Luke was not the one who was doing the actual Acts. He wasn't the one who was out there ministering to people. But he was there capturing the work that was being done. And that has remained for generations. We still know the name Luke, not because of what he did, but because the stories that he got to tell.
And I didn't even know that. I thought Luke was one of the apostles.
No, he wasn't even a disciple.
When you told me that, I was like, what? It blew my mind.
Yeah, he was. I think he was like a doctor and like a historian and stuff. So I just had this feeling where it's like I wasn't the character in the story. I wasn't Paul that it was being written about, but I had the privilege to tell the stories of people who are doing such amazing work.
Yeah.
And going to Africa with that mindset. And I had another big moment when I was in the villages because we got to break up with interpreters and stuff. And I got to go with the pastor of the church in that village and just walking around with him and stuff and seeing him interacting with his congregation, seeing him interacting with people who weren't in his congregation, just ministering to people. I was almost in tears, just like, I can't believe I get to capture this. And I felt like in that moment, this is what it means to be a missionary for me today.
Right.
That's what missions is I get to be on these trips. I get to, at MDPC, I get to go to all these partners. I get to go to all these different people and tell these stories. And that is the biggest honor of my life.
Yeah.
And I've never before felt so much that like I am exactly where I'm meant to be, doing what I'm meant to do. And it is the most rewarding experience I've ever gotten.
Right. I think it's beautiful. And it's when you least expect it.
Yeah.
Like it was when you were just willing, you were just saying yes. And you weren't searching, you weren't forcing it. You weren't like, I'm going to do this, I'm taking it in my hands. Like you weren't forcing it or anything. It was just meant for you at that time because it led into so many other things. And like you said, it was like you thought it was going to look one way. But God took your passions, your talents, your skill, and he shaped you and he molded you for that moment.
Yeah.
For you to realize, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. I remember you coming back and you saying you were walking alongside this pastor, right? And y'all were having just a one-on-one conversation. It was just you and him.
Yeah.
And that's when you realized, oh, like I'm Luke now.
Yeah.
Or I feel like Luke.
I felt it because I remember I had that in my head before I left for Africa, like it popped in my head, but then it really solidified in that moment. And that's where I got the desire of like, okay, this is my purpose. This is what I want to do. And so I was really changed on that trip, like coming back with fresh perspective and fresh like knowledge of like, all right, so how do I get to here? Like, this is what I want to keep pursuing. And it's so funny because it brings me back to the St. Augustine quote of like, love God and do as you please. Cause that's the perspective I had for years leading up to this. Where it's like, it doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to do what I love and I'll just love God. That was the whole concept. But man, so in Calvinism, which is a core theology of the Presbyterian Church, which is what I'm in now, there's a concept of the purposeful will of God. Whereas like, I feel like in a lot of non-denominational churches, there's a lot of promises of if you follow God and you love God, everything's going to go well for you.
Right.
But in Presbyterian and Calvinism, the purposeful will of God is like, okay, sometimes bad things happen, but there's a purpose to it. There's like a direction to it. And so I had been kind of pursuing like whatever I wanted to, but there was still that thing that I had when I was 5. I still had that notion in my heart since I was little that I was going to be in missions. But then somewhere around 2015, 2016, I stepped away from that and I was like, I'm just going to do what I love and what I please.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the purposeful will of God, that's when God is just like, oh, cameras. Cameras is what you like. Okay, we're going to use that.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, he took you and he just shaped you into this.
Ultimately what brought me in. So the reason that I got back to that revelation of being Luke is there was a journey that I had to go on.
Yeah.
Stepping away from this mindset I was in where I was trying to analyze every individual part of ministry to see where I fit.
Right.
And I just followed a passion. And I grew in that passion. And it was an obsession, y'all.
Yeah,
like,
it was.
Since 2018, I literally just watch tutorials on YouTube.
YouTube Academy.
Reviews and tutorials all the time. It's an obsession, cameras, and wanting to learn everything I can about filmmaking and photography and storytelling. I love it.
Well, and I remember too, because we've talked about this over and over. Before the whole Africa trip, it was like you wanted to shoot films, you wanted to shoot documentaries. We even talked about like we talked about this
Yeah.
3 years ago. I remember when you got hired at the first church, we talked about your growing love for cameras, and you're like, man, what do but I knew I'm supposed to do this, but now I'm into cameras, so I don't know how it fits. And I'm like, well, what if like we just shot like with World Vision or something, or like what if we went to Africa or some kind of foreign country and just shot like the water wells being built? Like that's kind of like a mission. And we talked about this. I remember distinctly we were going to the store and we were talking about how cameras and film and your passion that was growing could fit into your purpose.
Yeah.
And I remember that conversation in 2020. I'm like, well, maybe you could apply for a World Vision or Nat Geo or something like to go film some kind of like culture or something like that. Or we were just talking about that. And I remember when you went on that Africa trip, you were like, hey, the church, they want me to go to Africa. And I'm like, what? And it was also close to my heart, right? Because I had been to Africa back in 2012. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's incredible. And this was the first time like they brought a media team or a media member on a trip like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, babe, do you remember? We talked about this 3 years ago. We talked about how it could fit. And now look at God.
Yeah.
Like now look at God. That's all him. We couldn't make that up. And it happened. And you got to experience the documentary kind of style filming a mission trip.
Yeah.
And filming stories. And like if you wouldn't have never gone on that trip and, the story was never made, we would have not known about Lulwanda's kids' home.
Yeah.
And we're going to link that video, too, in the comment section, because that was like one of probably the best video you've ever made.
That's definitely the favorite video I've ever shot and edited for sure. And it's so much because it's such an amazing story. I mean, I've worked with so many great ministries and stuff, but there's something about that story and how I connected so much with Mama Ida, Pastor Morris, and their heart for the countries that they work and serve in.
Yeah.
And it's just so powerful, the story that came through it. Like I was so honored to be able to capture that. And that's coming home from that is when I knew like, okay, this is what I want to do. And there's still such a great appreciation for where I'm at,
right?
How I get to work here at MDPC. I get to do that as part of my day job here and stuff. But then I'm also connected to so many great people who are connected to other ministries as well. And so, I kind of sat on that after Africa.
Right.
It kind of faded a little bit like a
And then
memory.
we went to New York. We kind of got distracted a little bit, right?
Well, it was kind of like,
Because that was in July.
Yes.
New York was September.
Yes.
And then it was like all the holidays.
So when I got back from Africa, like August was starting, and we spent that whole month prepping for our New York trip.
Right.
And then that trip was amazing.
And I just got to say, like, going on a trip like that, if you've ever been or you are going, you really do need some time afterwards to come back and just, like, process everything that you've experienced. Because it is not only an experience, but it's like a culture shock, too.
Yeah.
And I mean, unfortunately, we didn't get that time because then we had some deaths in the family, like right when you came back.
Literally the day I got back, there was a death in the family. And
so we couldn't really process that, which I feel like it was going to blossom again, like at the right time, which it did, which was in December. Fast forward to December, we're here talking on the couch and we're like, all right, like, what are we going to do this next year?
Yeah.
And you still were... we still talked about Africa every now and then between then and talked about like your passions and all that stuff. And that's how we came up with Servant's Heart Media.
Servant's Heart Media. The conversation on the couch, we're just talking about what does this next year look like? Because I think in December, everyone's always thinking about like New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
What is the new year going to be like? What are we going to do? But we were having like some big moments where I think, God was really working on both of our hearts for various things. And there was just this big push on my heart for like really trusting God in my next season of life, putting more trust in him, the direction that he's going to take me, which kind of goes so against that. I'm not going to say it's against, so somehow it fits together, but it felt very contrary to the love God and do as you please, to the point where it's like, okay, well, now I'm asking again, God, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing it with that sense of fear or condemnation. For the first time, it was like a legit question of like, I feel like I'm about to step into something new. Like I've had these experiences that have happened.
Right.
There's these little seeds that are planted in my heart where I'm like, there's things I want to do. And so I think that was probably the first real time I asked God, what do you want me to do? That wasn't based on like some kind of fear or anxiety of doing the wrong thing.
Right.
But it really had to do with like, all right, I see that you're taking me somewhere. Because I tried to go off on my own, do my own thing, and you literally used that to bring me back into the church.
Right.
So something's happening. What is the next step?
Yeah,
look
I think
like?
at that point when you were asking, like, what do you want me to do? You already had that urgency to, like, use me.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I think, but, a lot did happen before then. You're processing a lot of internal things
Yeah.
and, like, breaking a lot of mindsets and, like, your ego. Because, let's be
That's
clear.
a whole podcast.
Yeah, let's be clear. I feel like God can't work through you if you want to be the center of attention.
And I think that was the big part of the mindset of like wanting to be Paul. There's a part of that that's like, you want to be the character.
Yeah.
But it's like, you're not the character though. Like,
And I heard something, I can't remember if it was in a sermon or not, but like, if your vision for your life and your dream about your purpose or whatever, if you are the center of attention, it may not be the right one. Especially if it's like a faith-based one. Like,
yeah.
if you're asking God, like, what do you want me to do? But like you're center stage and you're the spotlight, is not the right one.
Yeah.
Because you want to put God in that spotlight, right?
Yep.
And I think that's something that he worked on you with is like, nah, you're not going to be preaching. You're going to be telling the stories.
God keeps me humble.
Yeah. But it was hard to see you go through that breaking process, but it was beautiful at the end because I was like, this is what I saw in you the whole time. Like, I just saw it. I've seen it from the very beginning. Like, I've seen your leadership, your potential, your, like your heart for people. And like, that's what it looks like. And for me, as your wife, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I knew God was going to use us for something. And I think when you found your purpose, I was like, all right, God, sign me up. Like, I want to be right there with him.
Yeah.
I want to be his partner. Like, let's do this. Because I think at that point I was ready to like just follow your lead for the longest too, because, and I'm just going to say it bluntly, like you said it yourself, like you really didn't know where you wanted to do or where you wanted to go.
I didn't know where to lead you. All I knew is that we were just like going through life, trying to figure out, okay, what does career look like? How do we, build life together? How do we, save up, get a house, do all the regular things? And like, we were kind of just looking at the regular life things. It was all very internally focused on like us and our future and stuff. And it wasn't until December where I had that breaking point of like, okay, where are we going? Where is God taking us?
Yeah.
And, freelancing is very much a part of both of our lives. I absolutely love my day job at MDPC. Like I said, this is the most fulfilling job I've ever had. But we still both work additional gigs and stuff too. That's just part of the American economy right now. Is like everybody's got a job and a side hustle and stuff. And we've been doing weddings and things, and that's kind of where a lot of our focus was, because that's where a lot of a big industry in Houston specifically is definitely weddings. And it's lucrative, it's good work and stuff. It's fun for us. But that's where I felt this shift of going from like, okay, the business that I'm building, in addition to my day job, the business that I want to build, what I want to spend my extra time working and doing, isn't weddings anymore.
Yeah.
It's the part that I love here at my day job at MDPC, and how do I expand more on that? So instead of focusing on, hey, let me get weddings or commercial clients, it's let me focus entirely on wanting to work with 501c3s.
Yeah.
Let me focus entirely on humanitarian organizations. Let me focus on ministries.
Yeah.
People
People that
who
are doing good work.
People who are doing good work, who have amazing stories to tell. How can I help them tell their stories? And so that's where my focus turned in December. It was like, okay, that's what this year is going to be about. It's going to be about it's going to be about that. It's going to be about telling those stories to help people grow their companies, their organizations,
Yeah.
help them get more partners, help them get more financing. It's like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an asset to these companies, to these organizations.
Right. And that's what Servant's Heart Media is, right? Like, we serve nonprofit organizations, humanitarian organizations, ministries on anything that is content related. How do you get your story out there? And that's still, in this day and age, that is the digital mission that we live in.
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad that I'm excited. And I think too, it was just meant to happen the way it happened, like Africa, the things you were working on. And then like when you said yes to the call, everything just started falling into place. Like, I remember we sat on the couch and we were thinking about this company and like, man, we should name it. Like, we just really want to help people with a servant's heart. And I was like, that's it.
That's the name. Servant's Heart Media. Yeah.
I was like, that's it. That sounds right. And so right when that came to the surface, we started getting connections, and like, it's been a real blessing. And I know that this is what we're meant to do. And so if you're not following Servant's Heart Media on Instagram, there's hardly anything on there yet because we're
content coming. That's been the crazy part too.
And we've shot a lot of content. We just got to post it. But yes, Servant's Heart Media on Instagram is live. We just have to post all the content and get that going.
It's like, so when we started in January, we had this initial plan of like, we wanted to build this infrastructure and stuff. And we haven't really talked about it all really until now.
Yeah.
But we wanted to build social media, build a website and stuff, start putting content on, because I have, a lot of videos that I've shot that, we're going to be able to fill the website up with. But once we started it, we didn't even have to reach out to people. People just started reaching out to us. Organizations, connections just started reaching out to us.
Yeah.
And have been so busy with that that it's been hard to find the time to actually, we still need to build the infrastructure. So that's still coming too.
Yeah. So with all that said, that's another reason why we started this podcast too, is to talk about our experiences, the people we've met, the people we're going to meet. That's the thing. People we're going to meet. And give this also as a platform for them to come on, even through Servant's Heart Media, the organizations that we're going to be working with, have the founders or the people come on and share their mission. Be that liaison on YouTube and the podcast is hey, we want to invite you to share your purpose, share your mission. How did you find it? How did you start it? What led up to this? I think those stories always get me on Facebook. Whenever
Absolutely.
I always want to know what drives people to do these things.
Yeah.
And how did it all start? The context, I guess, the context strength.
Yeah.
It's so that's another reason why we started this podcast as well, not only to talk about our missions or our experiences or anything, but also to create a platform to share other people's vision and the other good things that people are doing and providing a space for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of so that's going to be a big staple that we want to do here is the organizations that we work with, bringing them on and just having another venue for telling their story, because that's really what we're all about, is partnering with these people who are doing the great work of hands and feet of Jesus and helping tell their stories.
Yeah.
Next podcast, I want to talk about the whole saying yes thing.
Yes. You got to share that story when you were at the retreat.
That'll be for the next one then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to cut it. We've been going long this time.
We went really long this time. I don't know how I'm going to cut this down.
But it's so good, though. Next time we'll talk about the retreat and you saying yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So, because I think that was a powerful moment for you.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm a little hungry.
I'm definitely hungry. Let's go get
Chipotle?
some food. Oh, yes, Chipotle.
Yes.
Sponsored by Chipotle.
Yeah, soon.
Soon.